I said last week that week 7 maybe was separation Saturday in college football, but really it was the exact opposite of that because there wasn't a lot of separation between these teams. A lot of big games with a lot of close games, and we continue to see that there is more parity in college football this year than maybe any year that I can remember. I mean, I've talked about this before. Any Power 4 team can beat any Power 4 team. Really didn't see the massive upsets this weekend, but we saw some close calls and, again, a lot of great games. So let's just jump right into the takeaways. We're going to start with the biggest game of the weekend, Oregon-Ohio State. And my takeaway here is that Oregon and Ohio State, they may play 3 times this year because these teams look very, very even. And I believe these are the 2 best teams in the Big Ten. So I think there's a very, very good chance that they make it to the Big Ten Championship. The only way I don't think we see this matchup at the Big Ten Championship is if Penn State beats Ohio State. If that happens, then we more than likely get Penn State, Oregon to the Big Ten Championship. And, Ohio State could go 10-2, but they're still going to be in the playoff. But, yeah, if Ohio State beats Penn State, we're pretty much guaranteed to see this matchup in the Big Ten Championship. And if these teams truly are 2 of the top 3 or 4 teams, like I believe they are at this point, then, yeah, we could see them in the playoff. So, yeah, this was a game that really just came down to the very end, of course. Either team could have won. There was really no, like I talked about, there was no separation between these 2 teams. They both looked very, very even. The game was at Oregon, so they had an advantage there. And if there was, 1 more, maybe 2 seconds more on the clock, Ohio State gets a chance to kick a field goal, win this game. So, yeah, it could have gone either way. Just came down to, this was a great game. This was just a great game, right there among the top games of the season so far. And, yeah, it did not disappoint. And really, a lot of great games this weekend. It seemed like, we had multiple overtime games. At least three of the bigger games were overtime games. Maybe, I think there were more than that. But, yeah, you look at Illinois, Purdue. Yeah, I'm sitting here trying to think of all the overtime games. It was just a wild weekend. Again, didn't really get those huge upsets this weekend, but we did see some great football. All right, let's go to number 2. All right, back talking about overtime. The SEC continues its wildest season maybe ever, and I really mean that. I would say that it's definitely more wide open, more exciting than it has been since Urban Meyer came to Florida. Because if you look back at the SEC, it was Florida, and then Alabama, and then Georgia. Like those teams have kind of dominated the past, what's it been, over 15 years? And it's different in the SEC. This is a different conference than it has ever been. It's wide open. There's a ton of parity. And again, we saw great games. We saw LSU Ole Miss go to overtime. Ole Miss really felt like the better team most of this game. They just missed some big opportunities, especially early in the game. And then, you just don't go into Death Valley at night and win. It is so hard to do. There's just some kind of voodoo there, and LSU just found a way. And it's kind of what I expected. I expected LSU to just find a way to win this game. That's exactly what they did. So the Tigers of LSU get a huge win. Tennessee survives in overtime against Florida. That was a great game. Really, Florida had opportunities to win this game, and that would have been a huge upset. I'm starting to wonder about Tennessee and really just how good this team is. Their offense is not what I expected it to be. The defense is better than I expected it to be, but yeah, Tennessee is kind of a team that makes you scratch your head a little bit. I'm really interested to see that Alabama-Tennessee game on Saturday. I think that's really going to be one that tells us a lot about both of those teams, because both teams have been struggling. Oklahoma really had no chance against Texas. Texas looks like the best team in the SEC, but I don't think they're just going to run away with it. I think they're going to be challenged in some of their games here down the stretch. And then, of course, we had South Carolina, Alabama, and that's kind of going to take me into my next takeaway. Alabama and Georgia, they aren't Alabama and Georgia. This is not the Alabama and Georgia that we have come to know the past several years. Alabama very lucky to escape with a win over South Carolina. The onside kick, first of all, the 2-point conversion, South Carolina had that. I mean, the play was there. Lenore Sellers just airmailed it. So they had a chance to tie the game, probably send it to overtime there. And then after they recovered the onside kick, a couple of bad, a sack or a penalty, I can't remember now, or a short pass. whatever happened, they lost a ton of time. The clock ran down. They really didn't have a great shot. And then again, Lenore Sellers just, I don't know what he was doing, just basically throwing a Hail Mary, but it wasn't time to throw a Hail Mary. They had time for another play. And then even before that, I hope, I'm not trying to hate on Lenore Sellers, but they had the fumble where he basically just handed Alabama the ball, which allowed them to go down and take the lead. So a lot of missed opportunities for South Carolina. Alabama very lucky to escape this game with a win. Again, of course, they lost to Vanderbilt. And then you go to Georgia. You remember the struggles against Kentucky. You thought maybe that was a fluke. First half against Alabama, they just, Alabama surprised them. They weren't ready, and then Georgia turned it on in the second half. Georgia looked a little bit more like Georgia against Auburn. But then this week against Mississippi State, Mississippi State's not very good. They're just not. This is probably the worst team in the SEC, and Georgia gave up a lot of points. So I don't think either one of these teams are really, this sounds crazy, but I don't think either one of these teams are really contenders to win a national championship. I think it's more Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, even Penn State maybe ahead of these two teams. Now, that doesn't mean they can't get things figured out. They can't improve, and they can't be right there at the end of the season. But the way they're playing right now, they don't look like the top contenders for a national championship. And we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, it's weird. It is weird. Nick Saban is gone, so you wondered about Alabama a little bit. But Kirby Smart's still at Georgia, and they're still loaded with talent. They had all the off the field issues, and now he just lost a wide receiver. He gets in trouble. So I don't know. Maybe there's problems there at Georgia. Maybe they've kind of lost control of the program. I don't know. It's going to be a big test for them against Texas. A chance to prove that Georgia is still Georgia. But if they don't bring it against Texas, they're going to lose that game, and then another loss could potentially knock them out of the playoffs. So it's crazy to me to see Alabama and Georgia where they're at right now. They just don't look like elite teams. Number 4. All right, the Big 12 is not what I expected. I put up the standings here just to kind of have a visual for you. Okay, BYU I thought was going to be terrible. Iowa State, not really surprised by them. I knew they had the potential to do this. Texas Tech, not really too surprised there. I did say Arizona State was going to be a surprise team in the Big 12, but they're even better than I thought. Kansas State, really not a surprise, but look at Cincinnati at 4-2. I thought they were going to be terrible. Colorado's about where I expected. West Virginia, I thought they might be a little bit better, but how about Utah with 2 losses already? Arizona's just 3-3. UCF just 3-3. TCU just 3-3. I thought those teams would be closer to the top of this conference. Houston's 2-4. Not a big surprise there. Oklahoma State 3-3. So the biggest surprise is Oklahoma State and Utah. Those are the teams that I said in the preseason. I said these are the teams to beat. These are the teams that I think are going to get to the Big 12 championship, and they are both they're not there. Again, look at the top: BYU, Iowa State, and Texas Tech. There's still a long ways to go, and it could definitely change. I think Utah's not out of it. I think Kansas State's probably the most steady team in this conference, and maybe they're going to be there, but who do they play in the Big 12 championship? I don't know. Baylor, about what we expected. But then there's Kansas, 1-5. 1-5 for the Jayhawks. This was a preseason top 25 team for a lot of people. Thought they might could sneak into the Big 12 championship, and they're sitting there at the bottom. So, yeah, this conference is just totally upside down. Hats off to BYU with an impressive win over Arizona. Arizona State knocking off Utah on Friday night. That was a great game. It's a wild conference right now, and it's just not been what I expected. And this happens a lot in the Big 12 because there's a ton of parity, and it just comes down to who wins close games. That's kind of what it's been for several years, and there's always at least one surprise team in the Big 12 championship, it seems. So, it's not what I expected, but it is what I expected. I expected it to be, crazy. I totally missed on the teams that were going to be good and bad, or at least win and lose the games. Because, I don't think Oklahoma State's a bad team, but they just haven't won the games, and they're 3-3. So that's very interesting there in the Big 12. Now let's go to the final takeaway. Penn State. Penn State's now a lock for the playoff. I don't see really any way that they don't get in, even if they lose to Ohio State, and even if they get upset somewhere else. They're 10-2. If things kind of, I say that we might see them left out at 10-2, but the craziness in the SEC, I don't think you're going to have many 10-2 teams out of that conference. And I don't think a 9-3 team is going to be ahead of a 10-2 Penn State. The only way they wouldn't get in at 10-2 is if there were just too many 10-2 teams, because they're not going to have the greatest resume, but it'll still be decent. I said this about Notre Dame, though. I said they were locked for the playoff, and then they went and lost to Northern Illinois. So hopefully for Penn State fans, I didn't just jinx you, but yeah, it feels like Penn State is in great shape. You can almost go ahead and pencil them in. I think Texas you can pencil in. Penn State you can pencil in. Oregon with their win over Ohio State pretty much guaranteed to get in. So we're starting to fill up the slots of who we know, or are, I wouldn't say no, but we have a these teams have a very high percentage chance of getting in. And Penn State, I think, joins that conversation with a big win over USC. That was another great game, another overtime game, and they just kept fighting. And how about this Tyler Warren? I mean, it's like they throw to him every play. Do you not? I mean, why does the defense not like double team him or something? I mean, I've never seen anything. It's crazy how much he gets the ball. But anyways, yeah, Penn State looking good. Another great weekend of college football. It's going to continue to be maybe one of the greatest. I'm already going to say it. This is going to be and has been one of the greatest seasons ever. But we're talking about it might be top 3, maybe the best season ever. We'll see how it plays out. But yeah, it's been fun. Those are my takeaways. What were your takeaways from week 7? Let me know down in the comments below.